Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. Here's the headline from the Daily Hodl, which made me think initially, I just assumed that this piece would seriously burn my biscuits. But it ended up not being as bad. So here's the headline, though. It wasn't as bad as I thought. After investing $425 million into Bitcoin, Michael Saylor says Ethereum, Ripple, Chainlink, EOS, and Tron advocates need new strategy. So upon reading that headline, and I already knew that this particular individual, Michael Saylor, who look, and I give him a lot of credit, by the way. He's forward thinking. His company, he's the CEO, publicly traded, spent damn near $500 million purchasing a cryptocurrency. Like, you know what? I think that deserves a round of applause. It's not XRP, which I would prefer, but it's not surprising to me either. And so I think, credit where it's due. He's forward thinking and super duper. But I also knew that he wasn't really interested in other cryptocurrencies. So when I read that, I was like, okay, here we go. So I was kind of thinking, so what's this? It's going to be this guy that just entered the world of crypto this calendar year is going to lecture me about Ripple. And by the way, he says Ripple, he really means XRP, but that's why I was extra like, my gosh. I was just kind of bracing myself for like how potentially terrible this could be, but it ended up not being that bad, and I actually think he made a fair bit of sense here. So I'm going to share with you what he had to say, as well as my thoughts on this here, because a lot of this makes like all the sense in the world. You're talking about ultimately getting what think about all of the wealth in the entire planet and getting as much of that as possible into crypto, right? Especially where it makes sense to do so. Like for me, it would just be, where's the utility, right? But anyway, before we go any further, if you would please delicately tap that like button, I would definitely appreciate the support. And also, if you are a fan of Ripple and XRP, my gosh, you might be the coolest person on the entire planet. Now, since I just gave you that very, very friendly, right? Just really generous compliment. Why don't you go ahead and return the favor by subscribing to the Moon Lambo channel? Plus, it's not just for me. It will make you happier on a daily basis. Don't you want some Moon Lambo up in your life on a daily basis? You know you do. All right, let's jump in now. The CEO of business intelligence firm MicroStrategy, which recently invested $425 million in Bitcoin, says altcoin investors should rethink their strategy if they want the crypto market to reach its full potential. In a new interview on the What Bitcoin Did podcast, Michael Saylor says investors in crypto assets like Ethereum and XRP should support Bitcoin instead of viewing the crypto market as a battlefield. And so look, it's absolutely undeniably true that things are tribal AF in the world of crypto, right? And so that's why I've always said I just want a bigger pie, and then hopefully I'll, myself, on my own little tiny individual level, get a piece of this, right? And I'm sure you're thinking the same. If you're listening to a video like this, you've got to be thinking the same thing. But that's why I've also stated, despite being skeptical about the vast majority of every cryptocurrency that exists, there are going to be some winners, and I want those winners to do well, even if XRP is never number one in market cap, which I think would be great if it happened, because hey, real utility today. But even if that never happened, fine. I just want to see the space do well. I would love to see Bitcoin do well. And so when he's pointing out here, effectively, that people are, it's like, in a nutshell, saying like, you don't need to be each other's enemies. It's more like just focus on building and getting money in here. So here's a specific quote, and I think this actually does make sense. It's a positive message. Here we go. The entire crypto community spends a lot of time talking about altcoins versus Bitcoin and bickering between those two. But what they ought to be doing is talking about alt assets versus Bitcoin, and they ought to be saying Bitcoin's volatility compared to silver or gold is trending down, or Bitcoin's volatility compared to Apple stock is trending down. I can actually find metrics of Bitcoin's volatility versus Tron, but it's kind of a joke. Because the $300 trillion is not choosing between Tron and Bitcoin. The $300 trillion, which, by the way, is 99.9% of all the wealth and power in the world. So all the money, all the power is not in the pond. So let me pause right there before I even cover the rest. Think about this. He's talking about all wealth on the planet being about $300 trillion. The crypto asset class today is what, somewhere in the neighborhood of 350 billion with a B. It might as it's like a rounding error. Like, it might as well be zero. It's almost nothing in here, which is awesome though, because that's what makes a huge part of what makes it possible to get these asymmetrical gains, because the markets are so illiquid. Not much money has to flow in to get this doubling, tripling, quadrupling, just crazy multiplier effects in terms of gains in crypto. That's why there's barely any money in the damn space right now. And so you continue. Here we go. If you want to make this entire industry successful, even if you're an Ethereum person, if you're Tron, Ethereum, EOS, Chainlink, Tether, Ripple, whatever you are, every one of them has a vested interest in carving a channel between the crypto pond and the asset ocean, and then getting $10 trillion to flow into that pond. The gateway to that is going to be Bitcoin. The only way someone's going to move money from gold, silver, equity, indexes, bonds, real estate into crypto is first through Bitcoin. And I think he's generally right there. Although maybe I'm a weirdo. The first cryptocurrency I bought was not Bitcoin. I'm about 100% sure it was ETH. I believe it was Ether. If it wasn't Ether, it was definitely Litecoin. So I think Litecoin was the second, and I believe Bitcoin is the third cryptocurrency I ever bought, and the fourth one. And the reason I bought those three, they just were on Coinbase. That was it. Just like every other human that entered the space, and I was just, I didn't even know what the hell I was doing. I was like, hey, let's gamble, throw this money at this, and it wasn't that much anyway. And then the fourth crypto I bought was XRP. 1 week later. After doing some research, that was the first coin I ever purchased that wasn't on Coinbase anyway. So I guess I was the weirdo. So like for me, it did not flow into Bitcoin first. But I do think he's right here. What he's stating here, most of the money entering the space is going to be flowing into Bitcoin first. People will then learn about the space, look around also. Like, what else is out there? Oh, over 7,000 cryptocurrencies. And hopefully, I know this will be true to some degree because it certainly happened to me, and if you're listening to this, probably you as well. You started doing some research, and then you came across XRP, and you probably thought something like I did, which was like, so this is useful. How about utility mattering, right? And so that's the way it struck me from very early on. It's like, this actually is useful. I was like, if it's useful, why doesn't it deserve to have eternal staying power in an open market price? Well, I think the answer is it does. That's my humble opinion. And to be clear, like, I don't have a financial background. I'm not offering financial advice, don't buy or sell, because I'm just sharing my everyday Joe Schmo opinion, but that's certainly what it looks like to me. And so he was just talking about $10 trillion flowing in. I think you're going to have individual coins that have multi-trillion-dollar multi-trillion-dollar market caps on their own. I think some of the ones that have the big, I don't know how long it'll take to get there, but I can't imagine that not happening. I mean, hell, you think about gold. I don't know what it is today. I didn't bother checking, but probably like 9 or 10 trillion. That's just gold. Well, think about it. Even if there's just a handful of winners, this could be absolutely massive. And that's a huge part of what is so exciting to me about all this. But anyway, Saylor believes one of Bitcoin's primary use cases is to protect people when their currency collapses. Big stocks like Amazon, he says, pale in comparison. That part I would agree with, most certainly. I mean, think about how much money would have to flow into the stock price, or Amazon specifically, in order for it to double. Like a crazy amount at this point, right? Relative specifically to an asset like XRP, for example, where almost nothing has to flow in to get it to double. But anyway, here's another quote from him. People in sub-Saharan Africa can't buy Apple stock and wire it to their loved ones in order to avoid being beaten to death by a collapsing currency, right? And that's the difference. Nobody's going to buy a T-bill. They're not going to buy bars of gold. They're not going to buy real estate in order to avoid having the currency collapse and being impoverished or starved to death. But in fact, the real news from yesterday that I tweeted about was Bitcoin hits an all-time high in Turkey, which is meaningful for 90 million people. And there was an awesome story on Medium about the other 19 countries where the currencies are also collapsing. And so when people start thinking about an investment that's going to change the life of 1 billion people, they start seeing there is a fundamental difference between buying Amazon stock and buying Bitcoin, because Amazon stock's not going to fix the problem for 1 billion people in the world. And I think that's a fair enough point. Now, obviously, maybe I would end up feeling differently about them as far as how, from a technical perspective, Bitcoin isn't exactly ideal. Maybe it'll be a store of value forever. Maybe it will be around forever. But it can't do much else. So when you start talking about this or that and changing the life of 1 billion people, I mean, if you think that they're just going to, throw whatever money they have into it and then that's it, and that's what you mean, I guess, okay. But there's a better way to help some of the poorest people on the planet today, and that would be with XRP. Because remittances suck today, right? That's as professional as I'm going to get about it. I'm going to say that remittances suck. They really do. They're outrageously expensive, they're costly, and they're error-prone. And so there's effectively a better way to do this, and it's been implemented today utilizing XRP. And so that represents true utility. And I don't suppose that Mr. Saylor knows much about XRP. I wouldn't suppose that, and I wouldn't even necessarily blame him if he started his journey with Bitcoin and that's what he heavily researched. Okay, fine, super duper. But I do think that it could not, to me, it could not be more clear that utility is going to be what results in staying power of any cryptocurrency. And in this particular instance, you are talking about helping some of the poorest people on the entire planet first, because that's where there's the most friction, and that's where Ripple's seeking to help. It's beneficial for Ripple and those people. So you can't argue with the results, my friend. So that's why I tend to think that even though he's likely right that most of the money that comes into crypto as trillions ultimately do flow in, and I do believe that will happen, yeah, it's probably going to start with Bitcoin because it's got the brand cachet, it's been around the longest, all this and that. Okay, fine. But people like me come in, and there will be institutions that come in, and they're going to do research. And I don't think it's all going to go to Bitcoin. Fine, floodgates will open. I think a ton of it is going to flow into XRP, and that'll just make more on-demand liquidity corridors possible. And then you just start to get this snowball effect from there, where it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And in terms of liquidity and price, I certainly suspect that is what we'll see. But anyway, that is it for this video, though. Thank you very much for stopping by, my friends. I am not a financial advisor. Do not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo!